Commander stood at the observation deck of the Coalition warship Eternal Dawn and watched the blue planet below. The world was called Seven, a small colony at the edge of Coalition space. It was not an important world. It had farms, a few thousand settlers, and nothing of great value. Yet the humans had sent 300 soldiers to defend it. Did not understand humans. The warrior had fought in 17 campaigns across the galaxy. He had faced enemies of all kinds and had earned his rank through strength and honor. His people were known throughout the stars as the greatest warriors the Coalition had ever seen. They fought with pride. They announced their challenges. They gave their enemies the chance to prepare. This was the proper way of war. But humans were different. They had joined the Coalition only 50 years ago, a young species from a small planet called Earth. They were weak in body compared to most races. They had no natural weapons, no thick skin, no great strength. Yet every species that had fought against them spoke of humans with something close to fear. Wanted to see for himself what made humans so dangerous. The door behind him opened, and a human officer walked in. The man was average height with black hair and calm eyes. He wore the simple uniform of the human military, with no medals or decorations except for a small badge showing his rank. "Commander," the human said with a small bow of his head, "I am Captain Sung. Welcome aboard." Studied the human. Sung moved with the easy grace of a trained fighter, but there was nothing threatening in his manner. He seemed almost relaxed, as if the coming battle was no more troubling than a change in the weather. "Captain," replied, "I am here to observe your forces in combat. The Coalition High Command wishes to evaluate human military effectiveness." "We are honored to have you," Sung said. His voice was polite but revealed nothing. "I hope you will find our methods educational." There was something in the way he said that word that made uncomfortable. But before he could respond, another human entered the room. This one was a woman with short hair and sharp eyes. She wore the insignia of a staff sergeant and carried herself with the confidence of a veteran. "Captain, intelligence reports confirm the fleet will arrive within 6 hours, she said. Sung nodded. "Thank you. Begin civilian evacuation to the underground bunkers. I want every non-combatant below ground within 4 hours." "Already in progress, sir." Tilted his head. "Underground bunkers. You expect them to attack civilian targets." Looked at him with an expression he could not read. "We always expect the worst, Commander. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. That is the human way." She left the room and turned back to Sung. "They are brutal, but they are warriors. They will seek military targets first. Your civilians should be safe if you meet the enemy in proper battle." Sung smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Commander, in human warfare there is no such thing as safe. They have 10,000 soldiers. We have 300. If we meet them in proper battle, as you say, we will be destroyed in hours, so we will not meet them properly." Felt his scales rise in confusion. "Then how will you fight?" "You will see," Sung said. "But I warn you, Commander, what you witness may disturb you. Human warfare is not honorable by your standards." Over the next several hours, watched the humans prepare. What he saw made no sense to him. They did not form battle lines. They did not position their forces for a direct engagement. Instead, they scattered across the landscape like insects. Small teams disappeared into forests and hills. Others dug holes and covered themselves with dirt and leaves. Some went into the settlement and began moving furniture and supplies into strange positions. Found supervising a group of soldiers who were handing out weapons to civilians. "What is this?" he demanded. "You arm your non-combatants." Did not stop her work. Every human who can hold a weapon gets a weapon. If the line breaks, if the enemy reaches the bunkers, those civilians will fight. "But they are not trained. They will die." "Maybe," agreed. "But they will die fighting, and they might take some enemies with them. In human warfare, Commander, everyone fights. Everyone contributes. We do not have the luxury of keeping anyone safe on the sidelines. Watched an old man take a rifle from a soldier. The man's hands were shaking, but his eyes were determined. A young woman stood beside him, probably his daughter, and she took a weapon too. "This is not war," said. "This is desperation." Finally stopped and looked at him. Her eyes held something dark, something old. "Commander, humans have been fighting wars since before we could write. We have killed more of our own kind than any alien ever has. We know exactly what war is. And we know that the only thing that matters is survival. Honor means nothing if everyone you love is dead." She walked away, leaving alone with his thoughts. As night fell on Seven, joined Captain Sung in the command center. It was a small room buried beneath the settlement, filled with screens and communication equipment. Human soldiers moved quietly, speaking in low voices and checking their gear. "The fleet has entered orbit," a young officer named Ho reported. "They are deploying landing craft now." "Numbers?" Sung asked. "Approximately 10,000 ground troops as expected, heavy armor support, air units." 10,000 against 300. Had seen bad odds before, but this was beyond reason. The humans should be evacuating, not preparing to fight. Captain said, "You cannot win this battle. The numbers are impossible." Sung looked at him with those calm, unreadable eyes. "Commander, humans do not fight to win. We fight to survive. And we have survived worse odds than this. They expect a battle. They will not get one. They will get something far worse." "What do you mean?" Sung turned back to the screens showing enemy positions. "They are warriors. They understand battle. They do not understand war. True war has no rules, no honor, no mercy. It is simply the complete destruction of everything that threatens what you love." He pressed a button on his console. "All units, this is Captain Sung. The enemy has arrived. Remember your training, remember why we fight, and remember we do not need to defeat them. We just need to make them wish they had never come here." Felt a chill run through his body. For the first time in his long career, he wondered if he truly understood what war meant. And he wondered if he was ready to find out. The forest was dark and silent. Moved through the trees, following the human scout named. She was a small woman, barely reaching his chest, but she moved through the shadows like water flowing over rocks. He could barely see her, even with his enhanced vision. "Slow down," he whispered. Stopped and looked back at him. In the faint moonlight, her face was painted with dark colors that broke up her features. She looked less like a soldier and more like a ghost. "You are too loud," she whispered back. "Step where I step, breathe when I breathe. The enemy has scouts ahead." Tried to move more quietly, but his heavy body was not made for stealth. They were built for direct combat, for facing enemies in the open where strength and skill decided victory. This crawling through darkness felt wrong. They reached a small hill overlooking a clearing. Below could see soldiers making camp. There were perhaps 50 of them, a scouting party sent ahead of the main force. They had built fires and posted guards, confident in their numbers. "We should return and report their position," said. "Your forces can prepare a proper defense." Shook her head. "We do not report, we eliminate." "Eliminate? There are 50 of them and only 12 of us." 13 counting you, smiled in the darkness. "But you are an observer, you will watch." She raised her hand and made several quick signals. Saw nothing, but he knew other humans were hidden in the trees around them. They had been there the whole time, invisible and silent. Minutes passed, waited expecting the humans to charge, to announce their presence, to challenge the enemy. That was how they fought. You faced your opponent with honor. You gave them the chance to fight back. But the humans did nothing honorable. The first guard died without a sound. One moment he was standing at the edge of the camp, the next he was falling with a blade in his throat. Had not even seen the human who killed him. Then everything happened at once. Explosions erupted along the far side of the camp. Soldiers screamed as fire consumed their supplies and equipment. In the chaos and confusion, human soldiers emerged from the shadows and began killing. They did not fight like warriors. They fought like hunters. They targeted officers first, cutting off command. They destroyed the communication equipment, preventing calls for help. They attacked from all sides, never staying in one place, always moving. Watched a human soldier appear behind an officer and cut his throat before disappearing back into the darkness. Another human threw some kind of device that released thick smoke, blinding the enemy while humans with special eye covers continued to fight. It was over in less than 3 minutes. 50 soldiers lay dead. Not one human had fallen. Lieutenant Dong emerged from the smoke, wiping his blade clean. He was a large man with steady hands and cold eyes. He looked at the bodies without emotion. "Search them," he ordered. "Take their communications, their maps, anything useful. Then set the charges. I want nothing left." Stepped forward, his mind struggling to accept what he had seen. "You gave them no chance, no warning. You attacked them while they rested." Dong looked at him. "Yes. That is not war, that is murder." "It is efficient." Dong turned back to his soldiers. "Those 50 scouts would have reported our positions. They would have guided the main force to our weak points. Now they will report nothing. Their commanders will wonder what happened to them. They will become careful, paranoid. They will slow down. Every hour they delay is another hour for our civilians to dig deeper, for our defenses to strengthen." Appeared beside, "Commander, the fight for glory. Humans fight for survival. Glory requires witnesses and fair contests. Survival requires only results." A human medic named moved through the camp, not to help the wounded, but to make sure they were truly dead. When she found one still breathing, she looked at him for a moment, then ended his suffering with a quick blade. Grabbed her arm. He was helpless. He could have been taken prisoner. Pulled her arm free. Her eyes were sad but firm. Prisoners require guards, guards who cannot be on the front line, medical supplies that our own wounded might need, food and water that our civilians need. We cannot afford prisoners, Commander, not in this fight. So you kill everyone. We do what we must. Look down at the dead. I do not enjoy this. None of us do. But if the choice is between his life and the lives of the children hiding in bunkers below the settlement, I will choose our children every time. The humans finished their work quickly. They took everything useful from the enemy camp: weapons, ammunition, food, water. Then Dong pressed a button and buried charges destroyed what remained. By morning, there would be nothing but a burned clearing. No bodies, no equipment, no evidence of what had happened. As they moved back through the forest, walked beside Captain Sung, who had observed the attack from a distance. "Your soldiers are skilled," admitted, "but what I saw tonight, it troubles me deeply." "It should," Sung said. "War should trouble everyone. The moment it stops troubling you is the moment you have lost something important. Then why fight this way? Why not meet the enemy with honor?" Sung stopped walking and faced. In the moonlight, his face looked tired, much older than his years. "Commander, my species has a long and terrible history. We have fought wars that killed millions. We have used weapons that poisoned lands for generations. We have done things to each other that would make the seem gentle." He began walking again. "We learned, over thousands of years of blood and suffering, that the only good war is a short war. The only acceptable outcome is one where your people survive. Honor is a luxury that dead men cannot afford. But your soldiers, they seem to hate what they do." "They do, every one of them. That is what makes them good soldiers." Sung looked up at the stars. "A warrior who loves killing is dangerous to everyone, including his own people. A soldier who hates killing but does it anyway for the sake of those he loves, that soldier will do terrible things and then carry the weight of those actions forever." "That sounds like punishment." "It is, but it is also what keeps us human. Sung pointed toward the distant lights of the settlement. 10,000 enemy soldiers are coming to kill everyone in that colony. Old men, women, children. They do not take prisoners either, Commander. They will kill everyone. He met's eyes. So my soldiers will do horrible things tonight and tomorrow and every day until the enemy is broken or we are all dead. They will hate themselves for it. Some will never recover, but the children will live, and that is all that matters. Said nothing, there was nothing to say. As dawn approached, he understood one thing clearly. Human warfare was not about victory or glory or honor. It was about survival, purchased with pieces of the soul. And he was beginning to wonder how much of his own soul he would lose before this battle ended. The command bunker was cold and crowded. Screens covered every wall, showing images from cameras hidden across the battlefield. Human soldiers worked at their stations with quiet focus, speaking in low voices as they tracked enemy movements. Stood in the corner and watched. 3 days had passed since the first attack, and in that time he had seen things that would haunt him forever. The main force had landed and begun their advance toward the settlement. 10,000 soldiers, confident in their numbers, expecting to crush the small human force in a matter of hours. But hours became days, and the days had become a nightmare. Captain Sung stood before a large tactical display. Beside him was a woman named Min, the intelligence analyst. She was young, with tired eyes and fingers that never stopped moving across her data screens. Enemy supplies are running low, Min reported. The attacks on their supply lines have destroyed over 60% of their food and ammunition. They have maybe 2 days before they must retreat or starve. Good, Sung said. What about their communication? Officer Ho has been broadcasting false signals for the past 36 hours. The enemy thinks our main force is to the north. They have sent 3,000 soldiers chasing ghosts. Stepped forward. You are lying to them, deceiving them with false information. Ho, the communications officer, looked up from his station. Yes, Commander, we are. That is dishonorable. A warrior should face his enemy truthfully. Ho smiled, but it was not a happy smile. Commander, if I can convince the enemy to waste 3,000 soldiers chasing shadows, that is 3,000 soldiers who are not killing my friends. Truth is a weapon and so is deception. We use whatever works. Min pulled up another display. We have identified the location of the enemy commander. He is here, 3 kilometers behind the main force. Heavily guarded, but we have found a weakness in their patrol patterns. Sung nodded. Prepare a strike team. Lieutenant Dong will lead. Felt his scales rise. You mean to kill their commander? Yes. But he is behind the lines. He is not in combat. Killing him would be murder, Sung finished. Perhaps, but without their commander they will fall into confusion. They will argue among themselves about who should lead. They will make mistakes. More of my people will survive. He turned to face fully. Commander, I understand your concerns. Truly I do. The belief in facing the enemy champion in single combat, in earning glory through skill and bravery. It is a beautiful philosophy. His voice hardened. But it is a philosophy for people who can afford to lose. We cannot. Every human soldier who dies today is someone's child, someone's parent, someone's friend. I will not sacrifice them for the sake of honor. That night went with the strike team. He did not know why. Perhaps he wanted to understand. Perhaps he needed to see with his own eyes what humans were truly capable of. They moved through enemy territory like shadows. Dong led them around patrols, through gaps in the defensive lines that Min had identified. They traveled for hours without making a sound. The enemy commander's tent was in the center of a small camp. Guards surrounded it, but the humans had a plan for them too. Watched as 2 human soldiers crawled to the edge of the camp. They carried no weapons that he could see. Instead, they had small tubes that they pointed at the guards. Soft sounds like whispers of wind. The guards collapsed, tiny darts in their necks. Poison asked. Sleeping drug, whispered beside him. They will wake in a few hours with headaches, but they will live. You spare the guards, but kill the commander. The guards are following orders. They are soldiers like us. The commander makes the decisions. He is responsible. The logic was strange too, but he said nothing as the team moved into the camp. Dong entered the commander's tent alone. There were no sounds of struggle, no cries of alarm. He emerged minutes later, wiping his blade clean. "It is done," he said simply. As they retreated through enemy lines, noticed something about the human soldiers. They were efficient, professional, deadly, but none of them seemed proud of what they had done. Dong's hands shook slightly as he cleaned his weapon, stared at the ground as they walked. Another soldier whispered something that might have been a prayer. They hated this, all of them, yet they did it anyway. Back in the command bunker, Sung received the report with a simple nod. "Good work. Get some rest. Tomorrow will be difficult." As the team dispersed, approached the captain. "Your soldiers are troubled by what they do." "Yes. Yet you continue to order such actions." Sung was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with exhaustion. "Commander, do you know what happens to human soldiers after war's end? Many of them carry the weight of their actions forever. They see the faces of those they killed in their dreams. They struggle to find peace. Some never do." He looked at with eyes that seemed much older than his face. "I know that what I order my soldiers to do will damage them. Some of them will never be the same. But if I do not give these orders, if I try to fight honorably against an enemy that outnumbers us 30-1, then everyone dies. The soldiers, the civilians, the children. So you sacrifice your soldiers' peace of mind to save lives." "I sacrifice everything to save lives, including my own peace, including my own soul if necessary." Sung turned back to the tactical display. "That is what human leadership means, Commander, making impossible choices and living with the consequences." Min looked up from her station. "Captain, enemy communications are in chaos. They are arguing about who should take command. Several officers are claiming authority." "Good, that will slow them down by at least 12 hours. Sung allowed himself a small smile, but it faded quickly. "Begin Phase 3. I want psychological operations to start immediately." Watched as Ho began broadcasting new signals. This time, instead of false positions, the speakers played sounds, screams, recorded during the supply depot attacks. The sounds of their own soldiers dying played back at them through the night. "What is this?" demanded. "Fear," Sung said simply. "We cannot defeat them in strength, so we break their spirit. We make them afraid to sleep, afraid to advance, afraid of every shadow. When soldiers are afraid, they make mistakes. Mistakes create opportunities." Listen to the screams echoing across the battlefield. It was perhaps the most disturbing thing he had ever heard, not because of the sounds themselves, but because of the cold calculation behind them. Humans did not just kill their enemies. They broke them, piece by piece, night by night, until nothing remained but fear and confusion. And they did it all while hating themselves for it. Finally understood why other species feared humans. It was not their strength or their weapons. It was their willingness to do absolutely anything to protect what they loved. There were no limits, no boundaries, no lines they would not cross. And that made them the most terrifying warriors in the galaxy. The ground shook with explosions. Crouched behind a broken wall, watching the chaos unfold around him. They had finally launched their main assault, throwing everything they had at the human positions. 5 days of raids, deception, and psychological warfare had reduced the enemy from 10,000 to approximately 6,000 effective soldiers. The rest were dead, wounded, or too terrified to fight properly. But 6,000 was still far more than 300, and the commander's death had made the remaining officers desperate for victory. Human soldiers ran past, taking positions along the defensive line. They moved with the precision of long practice, each knowing exactly where to go and what to do. There was no panic, no confusion, just grim determination. A massive explosion rocked a building nearby. Saw a human position disappear in fire and smoke. When the dust cleared, nothing remained but rubble. "First line is falling back," someone shouted. Captain Sung's voice came over the communication system. "Hold secondary positions. Do not waste ammunition. Make every shot count." Found himself next to Ho, the heavy weapons specialist. The big man was setting up a large gun at a street corner, positioning it to cover the main avenue. "You should get to the bunkers, Commander," Ho said without looking up. "This is about to get very bad." "I'm a warrior, I will fight." Ho finally looked at him. There was respect in his eyes. "Then stay behind me and shoot anything that is not human." The first wave of soldiers appeared at the end of the street. They came in force, hundreds of them, confident that their numbers would finally overwhelm the defenders. Ho opened fire. The heavy gun roared like thunder, cutting through enemy ranks. Added his own weapon to the defense, firing at the advancing soldiers. All along the street, humans emerged from hidden positions and unleashed a storm of fire. The first wave broke against the defenses like water against rock, but more came behind them and more after that. For every enemy that fell, two more took his place. "Ammunition check," Ho called out. 30%, someone answered. Falling back to position 3. The retreat was controlled, practiced. Humans moved from cover to cover, always keeping fire on the enemy, never turning their backs. Followed, impressed despite himself. These soldiers had been fighting for 5 days with little sleep, yet they moved like one creature with many bodies. A cry of pain made turn. A young human soldier had been hit, and she lay in the open ground between positions. Enemy fire prevented anyone from reaching her. Without hesitation, a woman in medic insignia ran into the open. It was Bai, the field medic. She sprinted through the fire, threw herself over the wounded soldier, and began dragging her back to cover. Bullets struck the ground around her. Saw impacts hit her protective vest, saw her stumble, but she did not stop. She pulled the wounded soldier to safety, then immediately began treating the wound. "You are insane," told her. Bai did not look up from her work. "She is one of ours. We do not leave our people behind." Another explosion, closer this time. Part of the defensive wall collapsed, and soldiers poured through the gap. They were inside the perimeter now, fighting in the streets of the settlement itself. Ho grabbed and pushed him toward a narrow alley. "The line is broken. We fall back to the civilian bunkers." "We can hold them here." "No," Ho's voice was firm. "We have a plan, follow it." As they retreated through the settlement, saw human soldiers performing coordinated actions. Some placed explosive charges on buildings. Others guided civilians to deeper bunkers. Everything was organized, even in the chaos of battle. They reached a junction where several streets met. Ho stopped and began setting up his weapon again. "What are you doing?" asked. "We should keep moving." "Someone has to hold this point," Ho said. "This junction leads to the main civilian bunker. If the enemy gets through here, the children die." "But you cannot hold it alone." Ho checked his ammunition. Less than half remained. "No, but I can hold it long enough." Before could respond, appeared with a group of wounded soldiers. "Ho, we need to move. The captain is ordering a withdrawal to secondary bunkers." "Go," Ho said. "I will cover your retreat." Grabbed his arm. "You will die." "Maybe," he gently removed her hand, "but they will not. Now go." Looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. There were tears in her eyes, but her voice was steady. "I will see you on the other side, brother." "I will be there. Now run." Watched as led the wounded away, he turned to Ho. "I will stay with you." The big man looked surprised. You are an observer. You do not need to die here. I have observed enough. Now I will fight. Ho smiled, the first genuine smile had seen from him. Then, welcome to human warfare, Commander. Try to enjoy it. The next 11 minutes were the longest of his life. Wave after wave of soldiers came down the street. Ho fired until his gun overheated, switched to his rifle, then his pistol, stood beside him, fighting with everything he had. The junction became a wall of bodies. Enemy soldiers climbed over their fallen to reach the defenders. Took wounds, many wounds, but he did not fall. Neither did Ho, though blood ran from a dozen injuries. Finally, a message came through Ho's communicator. All civilians secured in secondary bunkers. Withdraw immediately. Acknowledged. Ho pressed a button on a device at his belt. Time to go, Commander. Go where? We are surrounded. Ho pointed to a small door behind them. Emergency tunnel leads to the bunkers. As they retreated through the door, Ho pressed another button. The buildings around the junction exploded, bringing tons of rubble down on the enemy soldiers who had been advancing. You planned this, said as they ran through the dark tunnel. We planned everything, Ho replied. Every street, every building, every possible retreat. Human warfare is about preparation. By the time the fight starts, we have already won or lost. The battle is just the final step. They emerged in the secondary bunker, where human soldiers and civilians had gathered. Bai immediately rushed to them, treating their wounds with quick, practiced hands. Captain Sung approached, his face grave. Casualties. 12 confirmed dead, reported. 35 wounded. We lost the North Quarter, but all civilians are secure. 12 dead out of 300, against 6,000 enemy soldiers. Sung nodded slowly. They will regroup and attack again, but they have lost momentum. Their casualties must be enormous. Intelligence estimates over 2,000 enemy dead or wounded in this assault alone. Min reported from her station in the corner. 2,000 in a single assault against a defended position. The numbers seemed impossible. Looked around the bunker. Human soldiers sat against walls, exhausted, wounded but alive. Some cried quietly. Others stared at nothing, their minds somewhere far away. A young woman held the hand of a dying soldier, whispering words of comfort. This was human warfare. Not glory, not honor, not beautiful charges across open fields. Just survival, purchased with blood and sacrifice and endless preparation. And despite everything the humans had held, against impossible odds, against an enemy that should have crushed them in hours, they had held. Finally understood. Humans were not great warriors despite their weakness. They were great warriors because of it. Their fragility had taught them that the only way to survive was to be smarter, more prepared, and more ruthless than anyone else. And they had learned those lessons through thousands of years of fighting each other. They were facing an enemy that had been forged in the fires of human history. They had no idea what they were truly fighting against. The silence was strange after so many days of battle. Stood on a small hill overlooking the settlement. Below him, smoke still rose from burned buildings, and the ground was with craters from explosions. They were gone, retreating to their ships in the night, broken and defeated. 300 humans had faced 10,000 enemy soldiers. The battle had lasted 7 days. Human casualties, 47 dead, 112 wounded. Casualties, over 6,000 dead or wounded. The rest had fled. The numbers were impossible by any military standard. No army should be able to achieve such results against such odds. Yet the humans had done it through a combination of preparation, deception, psychological warfare, and pure determination. Walked down into the settlement. Human soldiers moved among the ruins, searching for survivors, collecting the dead. Their movements were slow, exhausted. Many had not slept in days. He found sitting beside a row of bodies covered in white sheets. She was crying, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. When she heard him approach, she did not look up. "His name was Jun," she said, her voice rough. "He was 23 years old. He wanted to be a teacher when his service was done. He used to make jokes to keep everyone's spirits up." Looked at the covered body. "I am sorry." He died holding the south entrance, gave the civilians time to reach the bunkers, wiped her eyes. He knew he would not survive. He went anyway. "That is very brave." "It is very human." She finally looked at him. "We do not send our soldiers to die, Commander. We send them to fight, knowing they might die. There is a difference. Every one of them chooses to stand between danger and the people they love." She stood and walked away, leaving alone with the dead. He continued through the settlement until he found Captain Sung. The human officer stood in what had been the main square, staring at a burned building. His uniform was torn and dirty, and he had bandages on his arms and face. "The coalition fleet has arrived," Sung said without turning around. "Reinforcements, they are too late, of course. The battle is over." "You won," said. "You achieved an impossible victory." "Did we?" Sung turned to face him. His eyes were hollow, haunted. 47 of my soldiers are dead. Good men and women who trusted me to lead them. Families will receive messages today telling them that their loved ones are never coming home. But thousands of civilians survived. Children survived, because of your soldiers' sacrifice." "Yes, and I tell myself that every time I close my eyes. I tell myself that it was worth it, that the numbers make sense. 47 dead to save 4,000. He shook his head. "But numbers do not comfort the families. Numbers do not bring back the dead." Thought about everything he had witnessed over the past 7 days. The ambushes in the forest, the assassination of the enemy commander, the psychological warfare that had broken the spirit, the desperate fighting in the streets. "Captain," he said slowly, "I must ask you something. Your tactics, your methods, they are effective, but they are also terrible. How do your people live with what they do?" Sung was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with pain. "We do not live with it, Commander. We survive it. There is a difference." He began walking and followed. They moved through the ruins together, past soldiers who were too tired to notice them. "Human history is written in blood," Sung continued. "We have fought wars that lasted decades. We have created weapons that could destroy entire worlds. We have done terrible things to each other, things that no other species has ever imagined." He stopped at the edge of the settlement, looking out at the battlefield beyond. Bodies still lay in the distance, waiting to be collected. "Every horror you witnessed, Commander, we first invented to use on ourselves. Ambushes, assassinations, psychological warfare, total war. These are human concepts, born from human conflicts. By the time we reached the stars, we had already mastered every dark art of battle." "Then why do you fight this way? If you hate it so much, why not change?" Sung looked at him with something like sadness. "Because it works, and because the alternative is worse. I can send my soldiers to fight dirty and win, or I can send them to fight honorably and watch them die. I choose survival. I choose to bring as many of my people home as possible, even if it costs us pieces of our souls." A transport ship descended from the sky, bringing coalition officers and medical supplies. Among them was an officer from the High Command, there to receive report. "What will you tell them?" Sung asked. Considered the question carefully. What could he say? That humans were monsters, that their methods were horrifying, that they fought without honor or rules. All of those things were true, but they were not the whole truth. "I will tell them," said slowly, "that humans are the most dangerous warriors in the galaxy, not because of their strength or their weapons, but because of their conviction. They will do anything to protect what they love, anything at all." He paused. "And I will tell them that humans hate war more than any species I have ever encountered. They hate it because they understand it. They know its true cost, paid in blood and grief and broken spirits. That hatred makes them reluctant to fight, but it also makes them impossible to stop once they begin. Sung nodded slowly. That is accurate. I will also make a recommendation, continued. I will recommend that the coalition never make war against humanity, not because humans cannot be defeated, but because the cost of defeating them would be too high. Any species that fights humanity will win only ashes and graves. And if humanity threatens the coalition, shook his head, humanity will never threaten the coalition. You fight only to protect what you love. You have no desire for conquest, no hunger for glory. You want only to live in peace. He looked at the battlefield one last time. The tragedy is that you have become so good at war precisely because you hate it so much. You end wars quickly and decisively because you cannot stand to let them continue. Your efficiency in killing comes from your desperate need for the killing to stop. Sung smiled, but it was a sad smile. You understand us better than most, Commander. I have learned much in these 7 days. The coalition officer was approaching, ready to receive the report, but had one more thing to say. Captain, I would like to request permanent assignment to the human contingent, as a liaison officer. Sung raised an eyebrow. Why, you have seen what we are, you know what we do. Yes, and I believe my people can learn from yours, not your tactics or your methods, but your perspective. You fight terrible wars so that peace can follow. You carry the weight of your actions forever, as a reminder of why war must be avoided. He placed his hand on Sung's shoulder, a gesture of respect among the glorify war. We celebrate it, honor it, build our entire culture around it. Perhaps that is why we never truly end our conflicts. We enjoy them too much. And humans understand that war is a disease. A necessary one sometimes, but a disease nonetheless. You are the medicine that cures it, even though the medicine itself is poison. Sung clasps arm in return. Stay with us then, learn what we have learned, and maybe someday you can help to find a better way. Nodded, I will try. As the sun set over 7, casting long shadows across the battlefield, human soldiers gathered their dead. They did not celebrate their victory. They did not sing songs of glory or triumph. They simply mourned those they had lost and prepared for the long journey home. And finally understood why the galaxy feared humanity. It was not because humans were strong. It was because they were willing to become monsters to protect what they loved, and then live with the consequences forever. That combination of terrible capability and profound guilt made them unique among all the species in the galaxy. They were the warriors who wished they did not have to be warriors. And that made them the most dangerous of all.